1017 FM and 710 KEEL. Robert J. Wright and Erin McCarty, 742. Allison Jones is a local attorney. Good morning, Miss Allison. How are you today? Thank you for taking time for us.
Good morning. I'm doing great. Happy to help you.
Sorry for waking you up.
She's not, really.
It's okay.
No, she's not, I promise.
I'm up now.
Yeah, well, if Erin had her way, everyone within a 100-mile radius would be up now.
Allison, looks like you are prepared to file suit on behalf of Judy Negrete, who was an employee with the Metropolitan Planning Commission who was terminated. Explain her story to folks who are not familiar first.
Well, my client is a long-term employee of the city, the Shreveport Municipal Planning Commission, and has served as a management assistant for close to 8 years, I believe. She experienced, beginning in January of 2016, retaliation and discrimination by her executive director, Mr. Sweeney. I wrote a letter on her behalf at that time pointing out that she and others who were over the age of, in fact, 60, were being told that they were being terminated. And what you had there then was the three oldest, most experienced employees being told they were being terminated and being replaced by younger employees. So when I wrote that letter in January of 2016, the city or the commission backed off of that particular strategy, and she was allowed to retain her job. But she experienced retaliation as a result of that. Her duties were taken away from her. She was told that her job was on the line every day. And then in late 2017, she began reporting violations of state law. She reported payroll irregularities, and amazingly enough, within a matter of weeks after she reported this and reasserted her claims of discrimination, her employment was terminated. And it was terminated under the guise of budgetary problems. However, when you do an analysis of the budget, A, there was plenty of money to pay her. It was a matter of priorities. And B, her job was replaced by two younger employees. So I think what we have here is we have very strong claims of age discrimination. And more recently, we have very strong claims of whistleblower retaliation. So what I did yesterday was I filed the charge with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission later last week, and I've pointed this out to the City Council, to the Caddo Parish Commission, and to the Shreveport Municipal Planning Commission to see if we can get it corrected, and if not, then she's going to have to file suit.
Go ahead, Robert.
You said that she was told that she was being dismissed, terminated, etc., because of budget cuts, budget problems. But going back to 2016, when she says the problems began, what reasons was she given at the time for her job being on the line, to use your words?
Well, the initial reason was budgetary constraints, too. And then after she made her complaint, amazingly enough, if you look at the budget, you can find plenty of money in the budget for this. It's just that other people were receiving raises and she was not. In fact, out of all the employees, there was a evaluation process where in order to get a raise, you had to get an Excel on your evaluation. And yet when we looked at the paperwork, we noticed that one of the employees had not received an Excel, but they got a raise, and that the evaluation had been whited out, we believe, by Mr. Sweeney in order to justify that raise, and thus then claim budgetary constraints such that my client and really the other two employees who were over the age of 40 and all of your experience in that department was out of there.
Well, let me ask you this. In Judy's case, when she was fired, you said earlier, then she was, for budget reasons, she was fired, but then she was replaced? That doesn't make sense.
By two younger employees.
That simply doesn't make sense if it was a budget cut, right?
Well, I agree. And I think that that's something that is, we're prepared to make that inquiry of what is the budget here? How is this budget determined? Who's given the authority to establish this budget? And are you allowing somebody the authority to establish a budget that's using it to retaliate or discriminate? And that's certainly the inquiry we're going to make in any litigation.
I'm sure you've heard the phrase aim small, miss small. The MPC is not the only entity that is aware of this situation, right?
That's right. The MPC is an interesting creature. It's governed by a board that's appointed half by the city of Shreveport, half by the Caddo Parish Commission, and I think there may be another appointee in there. But the bottom line is the city of Shreveport and the Parish Commission can come in and correct this situation. We believe they have an executive director who's a little bit out of control, doesn't have enough supervision. And I think, recently we've heard complaints from the business community about how that Shreveport Planning Commission the MPC is being run and the difficulties they're having getting permitting. And I think if you look at some of the decisions that have been made there are a lot of questions that need to be asked by the city of Shreveport or the Caddo Parish Commission. Somebody needs to come in and say, A, is this what we want to do for the growth of Shreveport? And B, is this how we want to treat our most experienced employees?
So are you and your client considering action against the city of Shreveport and the Caddo Commission also?
Yes. Yesterday I sent a letter to everyone and said, look, you have an opportunity to get this fixed. I filed with the EESC. I'm getting ready to file suit, but we need a leader. We need somebody to come in and look at this and say, this is not good for Shreveport. This is not good for our community. And it certainly was discriminatory and retaliatory against my client.
What do you have to prove? We're talking to Allison Jones, attorney. What do you have to prove age discrimination or race discrimination? In this case, these are three Caucasian folks is this going to be a race discrimination suit as well?
Yes, the EEOC charge alleges race and age, and because when you look at it, the only targeted employees were your older, more experienced white employees. Now, two have gone, one's retired and one has gone off to find another job, but my client stayed, was committed to this process and to helping the business leaders of this community and wanted to do her job. And so when you look at who's targeted in these alleged budgetary cuts, clearly there's a suspicion raised. In order to prove age discrimination, you have to prove that age was the determinative factor.
That's
there's
tough,
a but
right?
for test.
Isn't that
I'm
okay?
sorry?
Go ahead. There's 4 tests, you say?
No, that you have to prove that but for her age, she would not have been treated this way. If you look at the allegation that's been said about budgetary constraints, you can clearly challenge that as pretextual when you look at the budget. So then the burdens shift back and forth, and it's a different burden for race discrimination. In race discrimination, you have to only prove that race was the motivating factor. So there's a lot of variables here. We have 3 really strong claims. Her strongest claim, I believe, is that within weeks of reporting payroll irregularities, somebody who was claiming overtime who wasn't working, their hours were 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning when there was no business going on there. Why do you get overtime for that time and what for? Then I think once she reported that, you have violations of state law that she's reported, and then all of a sudden, once again, she's being proposed for termination under a pretext of budgetary constraints. There's a lot of questions to be asked as to what's going on at the Shreveport MPC.
What's the remedy for your client? Does she want her job back? Does she want a settlement? What does she want?
I think my job would like to see the MPC cleaned up. I think she would like for somebody to come in and take control and make sure that you don't have leadership that is not doing the best that it needs to do for the community and for the city. I think she certainly would like to be made whole with respect to her salary. Her salary has dropped almost, I believe, $36,000, maybe a little more. And then, of course, she's experienced emotional distress as a result of the 2 years of fighting all of this within, her role as a manager.
When you say she wants the MPC cleaned up, does that mean that she wants Mr. Sweeney removed?
I think there's no question that my client believes that Mr. Sweeney needs to be removed, but that's not her decision to make. That's the board's decision and or the city of Shreveport's decision or the Caddo Parish Commission's decision. The way it's structured, somebody needs to come in and make a decision as to how this board needs to be run. Now, I understand that today at the city council meeting, there's an ordinance that's going to be considered to restructure the MPC. I'm watching that ordinance with interest. I don't know what decision they're going to make. I'm sure there's going to be healthy debate about that. But, besides meeting the remedies of my clients, there's a community here, and particularly a large business community, that is very upset as to what's going on at the Shreveport MPC under this particular leadership.